Copyright disclaimer: under the Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations unto the Akim, I heard pushing his gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is Brother Kwana Watts come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. Hey, man, Esau at it again, man. Right? Another false flag event, you know. And we're ultimately, I got a couple videos I want to ultimately play. I'm bringing out just some information, right, just about in this whole, Bondi Beach, T attack, what they're calling it, just some information that ultimately, proves, right, that this is, right, a false flag event, man, that this is a staged event, and that there, first and foremost, there's going to be more events like this that are going to pop off, as, again, we come closer, to Esau, trying to establish his NWO, and whatnot. And that this right here is ultimately going to lead, to more anti-SEM, more anti-HETE, and or mis and disinformation laws, policies, bills, so on and so forth, right, being established, because we understand that Esau Edom, ultimately is, he's trying to hurry up and establish his NWO, which brings me, Revelations 12:12, you see in the green, it says, therefore rejoice ye heavens and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the devil. It's like, and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So, and when you go into this word devil, right, we'll just ultimately grab it, real quick, in the blue letter, Strong's G 1228, Diablos, right? It says a metaphor, right? A metaphor applied to a man, right? Who, by opposing the cause of the Most High, may be said to act a part of the devil or to side with him. And we know that this damn devil, right? Going back to the World Economic Forum, right? Klaus Schwab, Noah Harari, who's, been the main face as of right now since Klaus Schwab stepped down, right? They've ultimately made statements that, especially, Noah, right, Yuval Harari, he made a statement that, God's already dead. We're just ultimately trying to hide the body, right? They've been, ultimately speaking blasphemy, or blasphemous words against the Most High, for years now, right? But especially more recently, they've been, ultimately again proving, right, their opposition to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. So in reality, this is speaking about a man, which we know is Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, the spirit, the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, right? And he's been rushing, right? He's trying to establish his NWO, and he needs things to ultimately go his direction, and he needs to ultimately make it look like he's justified in doing what he's doing, which is why you're seeing, these different events being set up, because their whole narrative or their whole agenda, right, is to ultimately remove who, right? The Israelites, right? The so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? As well as you have the Israelite foreigners, right? But that's his agenda, is to get rid of the Israelites, especially those, right, who have been awoken, right, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai to speak against this damn devil and his system, So he needs to ultimately set up these different events, these psyops, these false flags, right, that will allow for him to be justified in basically coming and persecuting, right, the men of the Lord, So this is Revelations 12:10. It says, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our power and the power of his anointed. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuse them before our power day and night, and see these events that we're, ultimately going to get into. I just got a couple videos, a video, the elder Haya Napash, ultimately had done, just a clip. We're going to, ultimately get his, but nonetheless, I want to ultimately, touch on this redacted video, that's, I think it's live right now, but I just want to ultimately pull up a portion of it, right, that just shows you, right, none of this information is making sense, right? What is their point, right? Clearly they're creating a narrative, right? But what is their point? In 2 Corinthians 2:11, we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. We see right through, right, this whole plan, if you will, because it's really just a whole setup. It's a psyop. It's a false flag, right? We see right through it, man, and it's all to do what? It's to ultimately put, right, the men of the Lord, right, as, the antagonist, if you will, right? To make us out to be the bad guys, right? Which goes back to that word, accuse or accuser, right? Right? Strong's G2725, categoros, or it says right to accuse, which when you go into that word, the Greek word kategoreos, it goes back to, the English word that we have now, right? Category, right? That's where you get the word category from, right? So he's ultimately trying to categorize, really the men of the Lord as being this, evil people. They're terrorists, they're haters, they're so on and so forth. This is where we see this ultimately leading to, so without further ado, I just want to ultimately play these videos. And again, the first one is going to be from Redacted. We're just going to play, the last 2.5 minutes or the last 3 minutes that I have of this video. And before that, fair use is not medical advice. It's not for monetary gain or anything like that. This is strictly for educational purposes, and really, my opinion on the matter, right, through the Spirit, right? So without further ado.
You on this Monday, we are going to look, of course, at the Bondi Beach attack and all of the pieces coming together now. Why is Mossad there investigating it? Why did Benjamin Netanyahu admit that he sent a warning letter to the Prime Minister of Australia just a few short weeks ago, letting him know that he didn't appreciate his position on having a Palestinian state? So I guess in other words, it's your fault that these individuals were attacked. So we're going to talk about that, plus so much more.
The logic is really nonsensical because they're saying it was ISIS, which is the enemy of Iran, but Iran did it, so we need to bomb Iran. And Australia, it's their own fault because they validated Palestinian state. I really don't get it. Maybe we can have some guests break it down because, I feel like all I have to do is shout, well, anti-Semitism. So stand down on all of that. And then we're not supposed to make those connections. But we're still going to try because I don't want war. I don't think most people do. We're also going to talk about how false flags work. We're going to continue to talk about that. Plus, President Trump sort of dunking on the death of Rob Reiner, the tragic and horrific death. Isn't this what liberals said people should be fired for about Charlie Kirk? That's kind of funny, right? Do we have a double standard? What's happening here? Surely it's in distaste, but we're going to talk about whether or not we stand for free speech or don't we?
Thank you for subscribing, everyone enjoying our channel here. It's helpful because, YouTube loves to suppress what we do here, and they love to promote, CNN and Fox News and all of that. All notification, I don't know if it does anything. They say it does.
Honey, it's snowing. Look out.
It is hot.
It's that rare 70-degree snow.
Exactly. Anyway, we're here to talk about the news, so let's get into it, shall we? Are we watching NATO's strategy of tension plan unfolding right before our eyes? 2 potential false flag attacks over the weekend, one on Bondi Beach in Australia, killing 16 people. It was 15, now it's been updated to 16. One in Rhode Island at Brown University, where 2 students were killed, both reportedly targeting Jews specifically. And now Israel's intelligence service Mossad is now on the scene in Sydney, Australia as part of this investigation. Why? Colonel Roxanne Towner Watkins posted this a short time ago. Now you know why Mossad is on the scene. It's to deploy a narrative that exactly corresponds to the worldwide deployment of anti-Semitic teams to control anti-Semitism. You require attacks to justify the deployment. Expect more, and we are. And Colonel Towner Watkins joins us here on the show. It seems like maybe Candace Owens was right on this. A few weeks ago, she said, put a pin in this tweet, that there are seemingly a number of false flag attacks scheduled for like the second week of December. So it seems like everything is going according to plan, Colonel.
Hey, man, and we understand that Esau Edom, he's got his little secret councils, and whatnot that, that he ultimately be doing right behind the scenes, man. You got your regular, your G20 summit, your WEF summit, and so on and so forth, right? That they ultimately, that the mainstream, people, or the mainstream media or that are just well known, but then they have their other, different, their different meetings and so on and so forth that we all don't know about, behind scenes where they do all this plotting, they do all the, okay, well, we're going to do this, so on and so forth, and this is how we're going to do it, and it's all about, again, establishing, a narrative, right, that will help to fuel their agenda, Let's go ahead and grab this real quick with that Psalm 64, if I'm not mistaken. Right here, this is Psalm 64 and verse, I'll just hit the point, verse 2. It says, hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity. So they got these secret councils, right, where they go and they plot and they scheme, and we're seeing it, right? We're seeing, those plots and those schemes, ultimately come into, fruition. But as the scriptures say, in 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11, it says, lest Satan should gain an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. And when you go back to that word devices, it goes back to, a scheme or, a plot, right? Strong's G 3540, noema, right? A mental perception, right? An evil purpose, right? It says that which thinks, the mind, thoughts, and purpose, right? So there you go. Just to, ultimately see what else is. But yeah, when you go into, a device, right, on the online etymology, it goes back, to a scheme, plots and schemes and so on and so forth, man. So this is what this damn devil is doing, man, and to be honest, hey, this damn devil, he fucking up, man, because it's so easy, right, through the spirit to, to dissect, right, this whole situation, man. You got these people who, aren't, walking in the spirit, right, that are able to point these things out, man. That Yahweh Shemel Shai is not working with, right, to ultimately, truly reveal these things. They're able to reveal these things, man, and see that there's something wrong, right, with all this that's going on, man. Because there truly is, a lot wrong, man. You got that information, right, about this whole, Mossad thing, them blaming Iran, but yet, hey, this whole thing is messy, man. It's all messy, but let me grab this other video that the brother did, or the elder did, and grab a scripture, man, and we'll close. I didn't want this to be too long, but let's go ahead and grab it.
Shooting North Bondi Bridge behind the pavilion. They've have big guns and they're just
camera of this guy, perfect image of this individual.
You about the Bondi Beach attack. So both individuals have now been named. This individual is known as Naveed Akram, who partnered up with his father, Sajid Akram. allegedly known to be part of the ISIS group, as an ISIS flag was found at the scene when this man, the father, was shot down. It's been stated that at least 15 people have been unalived at Bondi Beach, and that the attacker, Naveed Akram, is still currently alive and within hospital. The attack is thought to be due to the fact that Jewish people were celebrating their holy day of Hanukkah, and as a result these two individuals partook in the most horrific crime of ages. However, it's also to be noted
Of ages, really?
that one of the bystanders who tried to tackle down the attacker was of Islamic descent. The name of the individual was Ahmed Al-Ahmed. Now, as a result of this attack, the government of Australia has stated that they're going to be extremely more strict now on the arms rules in the country. To be honest with you, I think it's a little too late, because so many innocent people have now lost their lives.
And many people can't even see the plot. They can't even see what the elites are doing, you know. But there's a lot of people that see. Now, this is pretty interesting, right? I don't know how true this is, but this is pretty interesting. They're showing they're saying this is the same guy, right? Right? You know, they found some Facebook, and you know, and you look at the guy's face there, and look at this guy's face. Very similar, I'll say that, right? But you can't be surprised, you know. Other sources say he used to work with the ID to the F. So, you know how Esau gets down. You know, this is very, very fishy, very suspect, and we're watching everything. Okay, we're watching everything. We're analyzing everything, and we know that these things are inventions of the devil in order to accuse. This is Revelations 12.
Right, which we brought that out earlier, right? Revelations 12 and 10, right? The accuser of our brethren. You know, but you see, you know, how all the information surrounding, right, this event that's taking place, man, is first and foremost, right, you know, it's very confusing, right? And when things, you know, when certain events come out and all the information surrounding it are very confusing, and you best believe that it's some type of false flag event, you know, it's some type of, you know, psyop that's, you know, that's ultimately being, you know, set up, right? If it's a, you know, clear, you know, motive, you know, and you know, whatnot, but you best believe that you'll be able to, you know, basically extrapolate, you know, the information from all the different sources. They all match up. But a lot of different sources are coming out with different information, man. You know, so this is very fishy, but hey, Esau getting sloppy, man. You know, he getting sloppy, you know, so let's grab this and, you know, we'll close out. This is Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 7. It says prophecy concerning Edom, right? Esau, Edom, which is a self-proclaimed so-called white man today. It says concerning Edom, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? And again, right, Esau, you know, has been able to, you know, ultimately hide this information and who he was or who he is, you know, from the world for so many years, you know, so many decades, you know, and whatnot, hundreds of years, you know, but now see the Lord Yahweh B'Shem El Shah is making all that information, you know, come out, you know, and I'll drop down to verse 10. It says, but I have made Esau bare. I had uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled in his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. So, hey, the world is, you know, Esau is the damn devil, man, you know, and again, he's being revealed at a high rate, you know, and his plans. You know, so best believe there's going to be more information that comes out, you know, about this whole situation. Continue to watch, you know, and see what kind of laws, policies, regulations, so on and so forth that ultimately stem from, you know, just these situations, right? You got the whole, you know, Brown University attack, which they briefly mentioned, and then you have this situation, you know, at Bondi Beach. So we're keeping our eyes open, you know, as the elder said, you know, we got our eyes on everything, and, you know, Lord will, you know, through the Spirit, man, we'll be able to, you know, give you all some updates, man. You know, but this whole situation just seems fishy, right? And Esau slipping, man. You know, he's not able to really, you know, cross his T's and dot his I's, you know, with these different false flag events in it or anything like that, man. He's being found out, you know. But that's all I got, man. Lord wills at a final, Lord will straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rachak, Wadash, that belongs to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of the great millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.